people think, or they want the perception to be that this is something different, but the system died in 2008, and this is the very end of it. And I feel like we are lurching from crisis to crisis to crisis, which keeps everybody off balance. And then when we get this final black swan crisis, which the interest rate, increasing the interest rates 50 basis points at every meeting could certainly be that black swan. I don't think they can do it. I think they have to do it for their credibility, but I think they're going to have a pivot real fast. We are getting so many true signals that not only are we heading into a recession, but there's no doubt in my mind, and I'm really sorry to say it, but I think we've begun the hyperinflationary depression. That's the next step.
Yeah.
The government and the central banks, rather, have really used a big part of the inflation to say this is what's happening with GDP. So the fact that we had in the first quarter, it declined by 1.25% when we have inflation officially running at 8.5%. Is frankly very worrisome. Now, why they want to say it's noise is because of all of the checkable deposits that are in the system. So the theory is that the consumer is really strong. Well, I think it depends on which part of the economy you're in, because let us not forget that K-shaped recovery. And also with the dollar against other currencies being really strong, right? What does that do to our exports versus our imports, right? Makes imports look cheaper. But it's all really a game, and I don't think this is noise. I mean, what do we hear? The dollar just hit a 20-year high against key trading partners. So the yen, the euro, etc. Well, at the same time that the inflation is raging here in food, in housing, in really everything, the services sector, right across the board. Well, how come if our dollar is so strong, how come our purchasing power is so weak? So
exactly.
If we truthfully have 3 cents left, and you look at the rate of the devaluation, so the purchasing power declining, that's really the trend. But if they can make the stock market look like it's high and say, look at this is making new highs, or they can make the dollar against other currencies, because that's what that refers to. But in the reality is that what matters is what you can buy with those dollars. And I think that now that it's running fast enough for people to actually notice it, it's a big problem. Bank for International Settlements, gold held at home runs no political risk, because it's the only financial instrument that runs no counterparty risk, and everything that we're dealing with is all of this counterparty risk. It's the only financial asset that truly is invisible. Once you hold it, you own it outright, and it is proven for 6,000 years to fight inflation. Look, the people that love crypto and the people that love gold are really, they have the same mindset, and I get it. This is proven, and I'm sorry, but when I read that 1996 NSA white paper, which is a government agency on how to create a mint, describing this whole crypto market, and I look at Wall Street, and I look at the level of adoption, one thing I know, I'm not an engineer, I don't understand cryptos, but I have studied currency life cycles and their transitions into new currencies since 1987. And every single time, I mean, there are repeatable patterns. And a key one that I would say is that they allow people the general population, to make money as they're making this transition so that people go along with it. You know, what I know, timing is the biggest challenge. But what I do know is that a lot of things have to shift in 2023, including somewhere around 610 trillion in notional derivative contracts that are tied to LIBOR shifting into SOFR. And they're forcing that shift even though when they ran that test in October, I think it was 2019, might have been 2020, I'm sorry about that. But when they ran that test with 80 trillion, it was a big fat fail. And you know that because it got really silent, and then 3 weeks later they postponed it until 2023. And LIBOR does not work like, or rather SOFR does not work like LIBOR. So, I hope we have more time than that, but I could definitely see a crisis maybe a little bit before 2023 or in 2023. Well, I think that the SDR is the most likely candidate to take over as the world reserve currency. So all of those dollars that are held in all of those foreign central banks, that's got to come home. And the way that they'll most likely do it is by depositing them into the IMF's International Monetary Fund's the special account that they set up to convert dollar assets into SDR assets, so that in theory the IMF can determine the speed at which the dollars come back to the U.S. But yeah, we're going to suffer the most in the U.S. because we're losing that status. Well, I would definitely be securing any wealth that I hold in the system, with gold and also physical silver. Okay, so you definitely need those in your possession. Secondly, food becomes the single biggest issue for people through this transition. So you need to secure your food source. I've done gardens, but there's all different ways that you can do it. But you definitely, absolutely, 100% need to secure your food. And only 3. If I only get 3, then the third one would be community. And I'm not sure that shouldn't be, maybe not the first one, but definitely
up there. Yeah.
Coming together with your neighbors, making sure you know your neighbors, making sure that you are part of a community, maybe in a community garden is great, so that you have a variety of skill sets to come together and help each other through this mess.
Absolutely.
Honestly, things are heating up, and it should be really apparent to everybody that things are moving really quickly, and we are going from crisis to crisis to crisis to crisis. Don't buy into it. Gold, silver, physical in your possession will enable you to survive anything. It'll enable you to buy what you need.